So thanks, Mario, and also thanks for organizing this workshop. I have to say it's a very strong lineup of speakers, and it's not every day. I have 2 slides that I took from 2 different speakers that are in the room today, so it's not every day that it happens. So this means that the speakers are very good. So I'm Vincent Lenders. I work since last year at the University of Luxembourg. I was previously working in Switzerland for more than 15 years at the Swiss Department of Defense, and was leading a cyber defense research center, the Cyber Defense Campus. But now I moved to Luxembourg. For those that don't know exactly, Luxembourg is not part of Germany. I heard sometimes, it's another city in Germany. No, it's a country. And Luxembourg also has a university. It's not since a long time ago, but since a little bit more than 20 years, where Luxembourg has invested a lot actually in its own university. It's by now the largest employer in the country, with 7,500 students, and with a very strong focus on areas that are strategic to the country, including also cybersecurity and now cyber defense. So a quick disclaimer from my side, because when you look at my title, you may think I will disclose now military secrets. This is not the case. So all information I will present in my presentation are from non-classified data sources, and also they only represent my views and not the one of the University of Luxembourg or my previous employers. So I want to start with explaining a little bit what is modern warfare. So warfare has evolved over the last centuries, as you may expect. For example, in World War II, the battlefield was air, ground, and sea. This is how the war was conducted. But by now, there are 2 more additional domains, space and cyber. And space started before the cyber, I would say. For example, in the Gulf War, you had suddenly missiles that were guided by GPS. And GPS, of course, with satellites on Earth orbit. And so this expanded basically the battlefield area. And I would say maybe 15 years ago, that was maybe the trend where armed forces around the world started also seeing cyber as a field of operation, a military operation. And what happened, they started building cyber commands. So similar that you have an air force or a ground force, you have now in mostly all modern armies, you have also a cyber unit, a cyber command that is responsible for defending in cyberspace, but also for being able to conduct cyber operations. And if we look at the war in the Ukraine that we have since a couple of years, this is considered as the first time we have a true multi-domain war. So because if you look at what's happening there, it's not like they are only operation on the air or on the ground. Basically, there are conflicting parties, Russia and Ukraine, that operate simultaneously in all 5 domains and the conflict. And some are clearly visible, and of course cyber is a little bit less visible, and because many things happen in the background, and also many attacks are defended properly. That's why they don't end up necessarily in the news. But I can tell you there are many things happening there also in cyberspace. Now, what is actually the cyber battlefield, and what is actually going on there? And if you look at the cyberspace, there are 3 main things that happen. And the first one is cyber intelligence. So basically, armed forces, they're using the cyber domain to collect information. So there is a lot of information you can collect, sensitive information, and this is one of the main area. And then cyberspace is also now very often also used for having a cyber effect. That means that you want to have an effect, you want to disrupt some communication or some network or even some cyber physical system. and you will use cyber attacks to be able to do that. And the last part, which is also developing quite fast at the moment, goes more into the informational operations and the cognitive side of it. That means that the idea is to influence and to have an effect not only on the computer systems, but also in the information space, also what people believe, what people perceive. So, for example, disinformation campaigns, propaganda and psychological tactics. This is the third dimension, and these things happen all the time and in parallel. So now if we look at cyber attacks, this is one of the first prestigious cyber attack that happened 2010. It's called Stuxnet. I'm sure many of you have heard about it. It's an attack that was never officially attributed to any organization, but there are strong signs that this attack was performed by the U.S. together with Israel to attack the nuclear facilities in Iran in 2010, and they managed actually to create some damage. And that was the first time, or one of the first time, that they showed that it's possible with cyber means to disrupt physical system and create damage. But if you look at this attack, it's interesting to note that this attack was, I mean, although it was on the cover, it was a kind of a very serious and well-prepared cyber operation, and it took quite a long time. So there are no official numbers, but the estimations are that it took like 2 to 3 years to prepare this attack, and over 10 million. There are even predictions or estimations that go over 50 million sometimes. So you can see, like, just being able to do and exploit the vulnerabilities, it was a chain of vulnerabilities because this nuclear facility was disconnected, it was air-gapped, so you had to come up with a series of exploits and exploit different vulnerabilities to reach your goal. And it was a very complex operation. But now, and this slide has been shown before, the only thing that I realize is that everybody that shows the slides has slightly different numbers in terms of the number of hours. So depending on where you take it from, you get a little bit different. But the main message here is to say that over the years, this effort that were needed and the cost and the time you need from the vulnerability to the exploit has been decreasing a lot. And if we take the time here on this graph from 2018 to now 2026, we are below 1 day, and this was also what Sergey was telling us. I mean, by now we are on average at a very small effort and time it takes to have workable exploits. And the reason, or one of the main reasons for this, is of course AI, and in fact mostly also frontier AI, large language models. Because large language models have been over the years increasing a lot the vulnerability disclosure process, and many tasks you also need to do in a cyber attack. So a very famous model to model cyber attacks is the cyber kill chain. And in this paper from Berkeley, they analyzed basically which part of the cyber kill chain. The cyber kill chain consists of 7 different steps, and in which part have we seen already the use of large language model to automate completely this step. And the darker it is, I mean, if it's red, it has been seen already in the real world. If it's orange, it has been demonstrated in the real world. And if it's yellow, it's in research papers, and if it's green, it's not demonstrated yet. But this graph, this is going to move more and more towards red, and I expect that in a few years the whole basically thing is red. That means that you can automate all parts the cyber kill chain with AI at some point. And this is, of course, the reason why we see also that the cost and the time it takes is going down. This is, for example, also observable in benchmarks, in CTF benchmarks. So CTFs are the capture the flag challenges. And over the last few months, there has been like a huge performance boost of the solving capabilities of AI agents that are building on large language models to solve these challenges. And this is here some numbers I took from a report from NIST. And you see that in certain categories of challenges, like for example cryptology or reverse engineering or web security, these AI techniques can solve up to above 60%, even up sometimes to 70% of the challenge. It still depends a little bit on the category. On certain category, it's less performant. But the trend is going up, and we see every month, every week, we see a new benchmark coming out that give a raise in these numbers. Now, of course, you need to be careful about these statistics. Never trust statistics that you haven't faked yourself. And I think here it certainly applies. So I'm a little bit skeptical actually about this very good performance, because also the large language models, they learn also on the previous challenges, and they're kind of cheating in a sense. So it's not fully clear actually, are the language model really improving in terms of reasoning capabilities for cybersecurity tasks, or is it more that they are just they have basically learned on all the write-ups from these challenges. But the trend is certainly impressive, and in fact we did a survey. We asked a couple of expert players and organizers in the field 2 months ago, and we received very confirming answers. Like for example, this player that said our best person works on this challenge, but this challenge is solvable by AI in 15 minutes. So these are the people that participate in the top CTF challenges around the world. Or for example, another one says if I ever participate in those and I'm allowed to use AI, I will use AI because I can't win otherwise. That's also another trend we see. We have seen it in a presentation before that it was possible to rank first with AI. So if you're a human being, you're kind of, and there are others using AI techniques, you have actually no chance if you don't use AI techniques. Or if you make a really cool challenge and then someone asks LLM and it just gives back a solution script, yeah, it's frustrating. That shows that it's also an issue for the people that build CTF challenges, because it's getting even hard for them to build challenges that can be solved by CTF, by AI. So we have been interviewing people that were really frustrated because it's getting really hard actually to find challenges that are unsolvable by LLM. And here I would assume that every team is using it. I think if you go to like a big on-site CTF, or if you go to CCC or DEF CON, which is considered one of the top challenge, and walk around and see the PC players playing, you'll see inevitably at least 1 or 2 people at very least in every team with a kind of AI agent. So this is completely disrupting basically the field, because now everybody seems to be using also now these tools to solve these problems. Now coming back to my concern of warfare and what happens in cyberspace. Now this is how nations prepare for cyber conflict. And this is an example that we have heard in the previous presentation before. And this is an example from NATO. That's how NATO does it, but I'm sure other nations that are not part of NATO do the same. And what is going on is basically they do some cyber defense exercises. And these exercises, if we look at here, it's a graph from this SciCon paper from 2022, which shows that in 2010 it started basically, and it was a very small exercise with 100 people over time, it has been increasing a lot in terms of teams that participate, but also in terms of people. I think this year we had over 3,000 or 4,000 participants. So these are very huge exercises where people are actually training cyber war. And what is this exactly? Well, it's basically a game, so with teams that compete against each other. Cyber locked shields. Locked shield is an exercise to train the blue teams. The blue teams are the one that should be defending an infrastructure, but there are also other exercises that are more concerned about training the red team. And the red team is basically the ones that will attack during the exercise. And then there are also other teams, like a green team organizing, making the infrastructure operable. There is even a yellow team monitoring, and there are even a user simulation team. That's a team of regular users. There are hundreds of regular users that interact with the cyber environment to make this as realistic as possible. And what are they playing actually? And this is a picture I took from this also a Cycon paper, which shows basically the gameplay. So that's actually the environment that is used to train this cyber attack and cyber defense. And what can you see here? You see a couple of critical infrastructure. You see a power generator. You see drone systems. You see a PLC for power generation. You see a research lab, office segment, public services. So it's a quite complex IT, but also OT environment. And what is special about this is that it lasts around 2 or 3 days, and during this time, there will be hundreds of attacks targeting this infrastructure, and you need to, as a blue team, keep it up and make sure your services are up and running. And it was also something we looked at a few years ago is actually, I mean, if you look at this exercise, you can abstract it in the following way. You have this team, let's say that's the blue team, and what actually are they doing? Because if you look at them, they are all in front of the screen doing a lot of things. It's hard to understand, but if you can abstract in the following way. They're taking inputs from different types of sensors. They have monitoring, alarming, alerting, intrusion detection systems, support tickets, and so on. They have various inputs, and what they do is they act on it. So they're doing some actions as output. They can change the configuration. They can reboot the system, patch. They're free to do what they want. And this is what these teams are doing. And what we thought of and asked a few years ago in 21, it was a Cycon paper, can we actually automate this process? And can we get rid of this blue team and have like an AI, an AI system that would do this exactly the same, and maybe at some point outcompete and win against these blue teams. So this was a paper we published at the time where there was no LLM, and it was really tough, and people believed it's like not possible, and it was indeed very difficult, and we didn't succeed a lot. It was mostly an architecture, but it was not possible to do everything that is here with AI. But this has changed dramatically now. And now with the advent of LLM, more and more of these functions are possible. And what we have been looking at is actually what can you do in this, because this is in the cyber defense operations. What can you do, and what are people actually already, where do we see already the use of AI technique? And this is here the NIST 2 framework. NIST, I don't know if you know, it's a framework that is used quite a lot in the industry to model your security processes. And it goes from the detection to the protection, identification, recovery, and response, which is broken here. And what we looked at, we did a survey, and we found out that actually most of the use of AI today is actually in this part, in the detection. There are intrusion detection systems that try to find attacks. This you will find, but there is very little at the moment on the protection side, on the identification, recovery, and response. So this is there is very little papers or suggestion how to do these operations with automation or with AI. And we looked at different ways, and we are trying to understand what we could do to basically, in the sense of having a automated blue team, what we could automate with AI in these other domains as well. And one example that we are going to present next month at SciCon is basically this. It's an agentic AI system that relies on large language models to do some IoT security operation. And what we want to do is basically be able to improve the security configuration of an IoT device. As an example, in locked shields, what happens at the beginning of the exercise, your IoT devices are very badly configured. They have default passwords on purpose, or passwords that the attackers know. And the first step you need to do is obviously to change those passwords, because otherwise the attacker will know them and will be able to exploit your devices. And what we did here is to basically develop a multi-agent system that does this password rotation automatically. So basically it tries to log into the IoT device. It tries to identify how it's possible to change the password, does the password change, and then checks if it's correct, and then disappears. And the idea would be that during the exercise you can repeat this constantly in case you get a compromise. And the challenge of this is, of course, I mean, we have seen also the previous presentation. The challenge is that you are going to have an agentic AI system that relies on LLM, and that it interacts with an untrusted source. It's the IoT device, and this can be hacked. That means that they can try to hack your agents. And we want, of course, to prevent this. And that's why we kind of developed these 3 agents which are segregated in duty and have a very clear interface, what information they can exchange. That means that the validation agent, what the validation agent can do, what the configuration change agent or the login agent can do, and they can only communicate over a very well-structured interface. And another threat that we wanted to address is basically because you may not trust actually the large language model in itself. So, for example, if we want to rotate the password, we don't want to have our password in clear text giving to the large language model. So we have also a layer on top of that prevents that the password is transferred to the large language model. We want to make sure that it can only help us at finding the password change page, but the password will not be disclosed or changed effectively with the agent, but with another process that we have under control and doesn't rely on LLM. So we did this experiment for a couple of services and web pages, and this is basically the performance. You see, we managed to do this without any prior knowledge, with 100% success rate in around 150 seconds. That's the time it takes to do this password rotation. And there was locked shield happening this year. The blue team, one of the blue team used this tool to do this preventive password rotation during the exercise, and it worked fine. So now I want to move on to the next part of my presentation, which is basically what we are going to work on in Luxembourg in my team about how to automate the defensive side of cyber defense. And here I first show you basically how cyber defense is done today in a classical way. So we have, let's say, an infrastructure, critical infrastructure, OT-IT infrastructure. It gets attacked by an attacker. And we have a security team, but what it does, it just monitors this infrastructure, and then it performs some updates. That's the status quo. That's how I would say most organizations do it today. Now, what we want to do in my team is basically we want to take, and I think that relates very much to also what Sergey was mentioning in his talk, we want to take the human out of the loop in this defensive cycle. And why do we want to do that? It's because the challenge is that this attacker is getting better and better and faster and faster. And this attacker, as we have seen in previous slides, it will be able to execute its cyber kill chain in less than a day, maybe in a few hours, maybe in the future in a few minutes. And it's very unlikely that we will have humans that will be able to react, understand, and do all the security process at this time scale. And that's why we want to take the human. We don't want to get him completely off, but take him at least out of the loop. So what we are proposing to do and research for the next few years is basically implement a completely new architecture, cyber defense architecture, that builds on 5 new components. And these 5 new components the first one is this multi-agent, what I call the multi-agent blue AI. And that means that you don't interact manually anymore with the critical infrastructure as a human. You don't configure it using the scripts and new tools, but there is a multi-agent system that will take care of it. But it's kind of challenging for him because he may not know, if he needs to do something, he realizes an attack, it doesn't know exactly what happens if I do that, what happens if I do that. He may not have learned this in his model. That's why we have a cyber range. And this multi-agent blue AI has access to a cyber range where you can do simulations and you have access to digital twins of the infrastructure. And you can test and experiment with different strategies before applying a countermeasure on the real infrastructure. Now, in order for this blue team to be up to date and be effective, we need to train it all the time. And we do this through reinforcement learning. And we have basically here a multi-agent red team that is attacking not the real system, but the cyber range. So, and this one is fed from information that we collect through cyber intelligence. That means that we will look also automatically for data sources that report about findings, about newest attacks, and how they work. And this is basically data that the red AI system is using for training itself. And then using this data, it will basically attack the cyber range, the blue team, and they will play against each other to improve their levels. And then that means that we will have also a multi-agent system to defend that has been trained with different types of attacks. And the human doesn't disappear completely because it's a critical infrastructure. There are also legal obligations, legal constraints, and also ethical consideration. You need to keep the oversight of what's going on. That's why we're also researching on how actually to interact, how have this human AI team interact with this, such that important decisions that an AI cannot take itself are exposed to the users and they can decide how they deal with it. So there is still this human interaction, but it's not in the loop, so it should not slow down the whole learning and execution phase. It's just about making the final decisions. So that's something that doesn't exist yet. That's basically the research we want to perform for at least the next 5 years. And we hope that we will be able to develop techniques and approaches that we can then apply to various types of critical infrastructure. And here I'll show you 3, which are at the moment our 3 main priorities. Because they are also very relevant to the security of Luxembourg. One is satellite systems, because Luxembourg has a very well-established satellite space industry, autonomous vehicles, and the energy sector. And the idea is that we can apply this kind of automated cyber defense tools to secure this infrastructure, which are very different in terms of protocols and the software they're using. So the idea of this generic AI tool is that it's so generic that you can apply it on those different systems. So you don't need to build it from scratch every time you want to protect another critical infrastructure. And we want to provide also a realistic environment that can be used not only for us in research, but also for operators, for this human oversight, that they can experiment with these techniques, also train themselves and see how they can react to AI-powered attacks. That's why these 3 environments will be implemented in what we call the cyber ranges. So we'll have like these are cyber physical systems that are connected to this AI system, and there it's possible basically to interact, to attack it in a safe way without damaging anything, and also test different defensive approaches. So with that, I come to already my conclusion or to my outlook, which was related to my title, From Cyber to AI Warfare. What do I mean by that? I mean that today, this is how cyber warfare works. You have this infrastructure, the attacker attacks it, and the defenders try to defend it. But what I believe will happen soon is that this architecture will change, and we will move to this AI warfare, where this attack is no longer actually attacked by the human himself. There is an agentic AI system that attacks the infrastructure, and in order to defend at the speed and the efficiency of the attack, we will have here no longer as a human, we will have a defensive AI system that needs to defend the infrastructure. And why called AI warfare? Because actually we have two different AIs, one red and one blue, that fight against each other actually to compete and contest in this digital environment. And of course, we still have the attacker which has some intent and wants to achieve something, and we will still have the operator that is responsible, and they will also give commands and say what they want, but the real warfare will be between two AIs that compete against each other. So that concludes my talk. I'm happy to take your questions.